So when we're analyzing property markets, people have the misconception of thinking that population growth rates have a lot to do with the property market. They might see a market growing exponentially in as the population growth is growing, and they're thinking that market's going to have a significant boom. And I'm going to break this down, and I'm going to show you some evidence that population growth rates really, you don't want to be looking at population growth rates. You want to be looking at internal migration and not overseas migration. So this video is going to talk about internal migration and overseas migration and what's the difference. How do you make an informed decision when you're analyzing a property market? So let's get into it. Now, as we can see, overseas migration, there was over 56,000 people that migrated to Melbourne last year in 2020, June 2020. Sydney, just over 50,000 people. If we look at Perth, there was over 22,000 people, and the list goes on. Now, these people do not have an effect on the property market. 9 times out of 10 overseas migrants that migrate to Australia, in the first 5 years, they do not purchase their own family home. So they will have an effect on the rental side of things, but they do not have an effect on the property side of things when it comes to capital growth. So this is something that we want to be analyzing data very carefully, having a look at internal migration, super important. Now, people think that, your best performing cities, Melbourne and Sydney, have outperformed all the other capital cities and all the other regional towns. In the last 5 years, regional towns have outperformed capital cities. Now, I want to break this myth and explain to you and show you some data so you understand and you can look at it and see for yourself that data does not lie. The devil's in the data. Now, as we can see, there's been over 30,000 people leave Sydney and just over 10,000 people leave, under 10,000 people have left Melbourne. A lot of people have migrated to Brisbane, over 13,000. Now, this data is from June 2020. Now, I wanted to get these two graphs to show you what was going on in that period of the change that was starting to happen. And I want to show you an article that was published, and it was sourced by ABS data. And as we can see, there's been nearly 40,000 people that have left Sydney. There has been nearly 35,000 people that have left Melbourne. As we can see, 22,000 people have left Melbourne and migrated to regional Victoria. Some of the best property markets Australia-wide. Same goes nearly for, Sydney there. 24,000 people have left Sydney and gone to regional New South Wales. And then if we look at Brisbane, and this data is from March 2021. This data is captured after 1 year, from March 2020 to March 2021. Over 16,000 people have migrated to Brisbane, and about 2,500 people have gone over into regional Queensland. Now, you might think that's not a lot of people migrating to regional towns, and how's that going to have an effect on the property market? Some of these regional towns, if they've got 20,000+ people, a large influx of people, 100 people or more coming into a market can have a massive impact on the economy, on the property market side of things. So as we can see, the data does not lie. And as I said earlier, your New South Wales regional towns, your Victorian regional towns, and your Brisbane and your Queensland regional towns have been outperforming Melbourne and Sydney. And I'm going to prove this to you. So if we look in the last 5 years, this is the last 5 years up into May 2021. If we look at your Melbourne's, 37% has grown in the last 5 years. You look at Sydney, 35% has grown. Medium house price has grown. Now, if we look at Orange, New South Wales regional town, 78% it has grown. We look at Wonthaggi, which is in Latrobe Valley, in Victorian regional town, about 3 hours away from probably Melbourne, southeast from Melbourne. It has grown at 95% in the last 5 years. Now, if you look at your Wangaratta, if you know where Wangaratta is, it's north of Melbourne, 3 hours away, 53%, outperforming Melbourne. Look at your Perth, 7%, hasn't really been a high-performing capital city. Look at Noosa, regional Queensland, 84% it has grown in the last 5 years. So the list goes on. The list goes on. And this is something where every state, every territory, every region has its peaks and troughs. And I'm not saying that it's in a downwards phase, Melbourne and Sydney, but I'm saying there's markets at the moment that are outperforming these big, towering capital cities. More affordable markets, greater markets to invest in. And so this is where you got to look at the data, looking at internal migration, where are people migrating. So if we look at population growth, and this is just something I just wanted to put there to really not, you don't really want to need, this is no necessary need to look at population growth, but we look at Byron Bay, the best property market in Australia. Last year grew 1.9% in population growth. Hobart grew 2.3% in population growth rate. Now, Hobart grew last year, in the last 5 years has grown nearly 70%. So its population growth has been, not pretty stable. It's been increasing. Your Melbourne, 2% in the last year. You look at Sydney, 4.5% in the last year in 2020 and 21, it grew. But how come the property market didn't perform as well when there was a large influx of people? Now, population growth rate, it's a mixture of internal and overseas migrants. But as we can see, there's been an influx of overseas migrants that have migrated. There's over 50,000 people that migrated to Sydney. Orange, one of the best property markets, 78% it grew. 1.16% it grew in population growth rate. Now, Wonthaggi, like I mentioned before, 95% it grew, which is located in the Latrobe Valley. 0.4% it grew population growth rate. Now, if I look at the people that left Melbourne, which was 22,000 people, where did these people migrate to? Where did they move to? And the devil doesn't lie. So this is something that I use ABS data to help me with these decisions. And last but not least, Noosa, 1.29%, one of the greatest property markets in Australia as well, which grew, I think, 84% last year. Well, not sorry, in the last 5 years, I should say. So those property markets, as you can see, population growth has really nothing to do with it. It's got to do with internal migration. Where are these people coming from? And you can get this data from ABS data and have a look for yourself what's going on in a region, because these people are going to impact the region more than overseas migrants. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, overseas migrants in the first 5 years do not buy their first family home, they rent. So this is something to have a look at. Something that's really important, internal migration. So if you got something from this video, I'd appreciate it if you could just give us a like, share, or even subscribe to this channel, because this is something I want to be bringing out more information, more data about more information on how to read data, how to look at data, how to make an informed decision to make sure you don't make a mistake when you're analyzing a property market, because that's the last thing you want to do. Purchasing a property and making the wrong decision can hold you back for decades and decades and decades, depending on your analysis and the low level of due diligence you have performed. So the more due diligence you do, the better result you're going to get. So hopefully, if you use this result, you're going to get a better outcome for your property market. So thank you for watching this video, and if you have liked and subscribed and you have shared this channel, I appreciate you, and just keep updating with our channel, because there's going to be more videos getting uploaded every single week. We're going to be bringing something new and different to you guys. Thank you.